Hi, everyone. Please subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it. Thank you. So I noticed a few comments revealing that some people seem to be confused about what would happen if something were to happen to Trump. And the answer is pretty simple. As per the Constitution, J.D. Vance would assume the presidency, unsavory though that may be, although I got to be honest, to those who say it would be horrific, I'm not sure how much more horrific it would be than what we're currently experiencing, since we're being led by a narcissist who's bordering on mental illness, in my opinion, and who has zero discipline, is absolutely self-interested, and is especially dangerous because he's on his second term and basically doesn't really care anymore except for himself. Whereas anyone who would replace him would almost certainly want to extend their success beyond just the immediate years that they're in. And to those who then say, well, no, that doesn't count, because if JD enters power, then he works with Peter Thiel and they're going to control everything and they'll never leave power. Well, first of all, I have to ask you, like, how's that going to work? And by the way, to those who are so convinced that there's this nefarious plot in the background to basically eliminate democracy, then why are they so adamant about gerrymandering House seats in Texas, to extend their House lead? I mean, why? Why bother? I mean, if they can just flip the switch or do whatever they're going to do to magically win elections, why bother entering into controversies to gain more seats? Although I'll tell you, if they do push that plan forward and they succeed in doing it, what they'll set off is a kind of nuclear war, because then states like California and New York will do the same thing and basically gerrymander the Republicans out of power in those states. And since there are more seats in those bigger states, it'll be a problem for the Republicans. So that may put the brakes on that. But bottom line, there is an order of governance which goes president, vice president, and if it should happen that Vance were to take over, then they would need to put in another vice president, because if the vice president is unable to continue, then it goes to the Speaker of the House, which currently is Mike Johnson. But if this were to happen in 2027, following a House loss, at that point it would be Hakeem Jeffries. And I can tell you that the Republicans and the GOP, although I'm pretty sure the Democrats would also behave in this way, they would sooner slit their wrists than let the opposing party take over. So they would definitely cover those angles. I mean, there might be some incredible surprise, which in astrology I would assign to the fact that the Uranus cycle is yet to disconnect from the American moon until next spring. So I suppose it's possible that we could get some kind of unbelievable earthquake resulting in something extremely unusual. But that's pretty unlikely, quite unlikely, in my opinion. In the meantime, to those, again, that are adamant about the incredibly nefarious, ultra powerful nature of this crew, I gotta tell you, I'm pretty skeptical, because they're all over the map. They're not coherent. They're not moving in unison. And they have a lot of cracks in the armor, such as, for example, that now there are a lot of Congress people that are not in sync with the president because their jobs are soon going to be threatened. And this is why they're pushing into the Epstein investigation in ways that I'm sure are annoying the heck out of the Orange Man. Or today, in the Sunday shows, Mike Johnson was heard to say very clearly on camera that she doesn't think Ghislaine Maxwell should get any pardon, because if anything, she should be in jail for the rest of her life, given the nature of her crimes, how brutal they were, how as many as 1,000 victims were involved, and he just thinks it's preposterous to suggest pardons. Now, of course, they come back to that. It's true that Trump in the end doesn't give an F, and he could issue the pardon or promise the pardon in the background because this wouldn't happen until later anyway. But even at this point, if she were to make a statement to say Trump wasn't involved, which is what I'm assuming he wants, so he can say, see, I've been exonerated. I had nothing to do with it. Even with that, I don't think it's going to satisfy the base because they want their pound of flesh. They want to see who these elites are that are being protected, these people that were part of a cabal that did all these horrible things. They're assuming that they're all Democrats, and that's almost certainly not true. In fact, 100% not true. If I had to guess, most of them are likely to be Republicans. It always works out this way in this country. It's remarkable. But either way, the base is not going to be on board with that. And so it'll continue the friction. And you can see in Johnson's chart right now is very uncomfortable because that Saturn Neptune conjunction in Aries this summer of 25 is challenging his Pluto position. That's why he's squirming. But it doesn't really get better because as Saturn backtracks into Pisces, and later in the year, Neptune will backtrack into Pisces. And so what happens is they square is Jupiter. So there's always a planet there that is being harassed. And so he's not going to get any real respite around the divisions in the house and so forth. This also includes that Saturn position of his, which is stationary at birth, which does give him a substantial amount of discipline, but it does oppose Neptune geometrically, which is why he's quite a liar, and a deceiver. There's no question in my mind about that. But the point is that Saturn in late Taurus is placed such that the Uranus cycle is just a little past it now, but it comes back and goes over it until it finishes completely next spring. So he is in constant turbulence until, let's just say, at least the middle of next year. And then other problems develop from there, but that's the immediate term for him. But the main point is that it's not a coherent plan that they're operating under, probably most notably because of the leader they have. In a sense, it's unsurprising. So that's the bottom line on it for now, but this was just to answer the point around what the correct succession is. And I know that there are people who think that something really nefarious is going to be discovered, and then things like there will be some kind of panel appointed or the military will intervene. I think all these things are pipe dreams. I think that we have to go one election after another and assume that we're dealing with, well, assuming it to me is pretty obvious that they're going to be around until 2028, 100% that this is going to be the case. And, in my opinion, in politics, just like there are other adages that apply really, really well, like, for example, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. It's very helpful when someone who you dislike is causing trouble, you urge them on. Or the fact that very often the most you'll get is the lesser of two evils. People are never totally satisfied. Oh, I don't like that person completely. I prefer a different person. This is what has gotten us into so much trouble over the years. People not liking their candidate enough and therefore not showing up to vote or voting the wrong way. This is literally suicidal. And finally, I'll say that another great adage is you take what you can get. Any progress is good progress. Anything that is pointing the ship in the right direction is a good thing. And from my vantage point, I continue to look at what I see for example, in 2026 around election time. And if I'm filtering through there, I've decades of experience doing this and tuning into how these planets work. I'm not going to be tuning into the idea that, well, yes, but that doesn't matter where the planets are because these people will just cheat or bypass the whole thing. Well, the point is they won't do that because of the planets. It's the same thing for 2028. If you don't have a favorable setup, yeah, you can try to cheat, you can try to do all kinds of things, but that doesn't mean you're going to succeed. And that's the bottom line. In that sense, the planets trump them, no pun intended.